Hello, everyone. Welcome to Power Pantaloons podcast. My name is Tanya. I am your holistic cancer wellness specialist. And today we have Terese Bowers with us. Welcome, Terese.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. I want you to tell everybody what you do.
Oh, I am a cannabis wellness coach. I'll say it again because most people have not heard of that before. So it's a cannabis wellness coach. And so I help women to find their way with cannabis in a safe and healthy relationship and to utilize cannabis for therapeutic purposes.
Fantastic. I absolutely want to explore this. And now that it is legal in most states, or especially medical, so if you have medical needs, it's definitely legal in most states at this point. It was not legal when I went through my cancer journey, so I'm not going to admit to anything, but
Mm.
I support the tremendous healing properties of this plant. So, why don't you explain a little bit about the difference between THC and CBD and what a cannabinoid, I can't even say it.
Cannabinoid.
That's it. That's the word I'm going to trip over.
Yeah. So the cannabis plant has been used medicinally for centuries. Way before our ancestors were using cannabis for healing remedies, for helping with arthritis back in the day, even. And so inflammation. Queen Victoria utilized it for her menstrual cramps. So it's been around the block a lot. And back then we didn't have what is a cannabinoid. We just consumed cannabis in its whole form, usually made into tinctures. And now with research in the early in the 80s and 90s, Israel was very a lot of research, cannabis research came out of Israel. So we're so grateful for them and for their deep research that has gone on. And that's where they discovered the cannabinoids, specifically THC and CBD. And we're continuing to discover more and more of these cannabinoids. But yes, the two main ones are THC and CBD. THC tends to be the one that we refer to when we're talking about weed or pot or smoking, is tends to be the THC because it is the cannabinoid that can cause some intoxication. But it doesn't have to. Utilized in the right way, it doesn't have to. Uh,
Microdosing.
that's right. Yes, keeping our doses really low and also working together with CBD. So by combining CBD to THC, it really helps to reduce that possibility of intoxication and also helps to boost the properties of THC, and they work really well together. So when we're looking at, and they each have their different properties. THC is really good for pain and for sleep. CBD is really good for anxiety and for energy. And so they've got really different properties that we can utilize at different times of the day or different things that are going on within our bodies.
That's fantastic. Is the method of dosing, does that affect so if you have a cookie or a tincture, like even if they have the same milligrams or whatever, is the effect going to be the same or could it be different?
It's actually quite different, the methods of intake. So that's what we call when we're looking to how do we want to consume cannabis, then we can look to the methods of intake. And so our most popular one is inhalation or smoking. I refer to as inhalation because we don't actually have to smoke. You don't have to use a joint and puff away. You don't have to do it this way. You can use a vaporizer. Usually have one here to show you, but I think it's in my last DIY demo. Yeah, so I don't actually utilize cannabis very much through this form. Often it's through vaporizing. So with a dry herb vaporizer pen, so you're not inhaling smoke, you're inhaling a vapor. And then we have our oils, so things like that come like in bottles that are either made with alcohol or with oil, usually coconut oil, and we get these liquid tinctures. So the cannabis has been infused into them. So that's a different method. It feels different in the body. When we inhale and smoke, it goes into our lungs and then up to the brain pretty much right away within moments, and you start to feel it right away. And so it's more of, if you were consuming enough to get high, then it would be more of a head high. Whereas something like an edible, so moving from an oil into an edible, it's processed through the body. So it goes through the liver and through the digestive system and actually converts, the THC converts within the liver to another form of THC, which actually can be, it can be more potent than the inhalation piece. So that's why we're really cautious with edibles with new people who are just starting, because you can overdose really, really easily. By overdose, I mean take too much, have an uncomfortable experience. That's what I mean. So I don't mean overdose as far as have a life-altering situation, medical thing happening. Cannabis doesn't do that. It doesn't. We don't overdose and die from cannabis at all. It just
Right.
can be uncomfortable.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a second about the inhalation and the vapors. I'm assuming that's the essential oil of the plant matter, which is why it goes straight into your bloodstream so quickly and you're able to experience the medicinal effects almost immediately.
Both the cannabinoids, so when you're inhaling the cannabinoids, the THC and CB, and the terpenes, which are the essential oils of the plant. And so, yeah, there's this really cool piece about cannabis that we're starting to just discover more and more. The essential oils of the plant, or the terpenes, and those are the smells that we're smelling, and each of those terpenes has a healing property. So you can really start to dial in your cannabinoids, your terpenes, what the strain, a cultivar is, and get a broader profile than just going in, give me whatever you've got. Like, we can be more intentional with each piece.
So the terpenes would be based on things like where the plant is grown, the soil quantities and stuff. Like, I'm a certified aromatherapist, and I know that when you grow lavender in France, you have a different chemical makeup than if you grow lavender in your backyard. And they run it through a gas spectrometer, mass
Mass gas.
GCMS. Yeah,
Yes.
like
Yes.
so that you can actually look at the breakdowns. And you taught me something. I didn't know that the essential oils were called terpenes, and I was going to ask you about terpenes and exactly what that is. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
Mm. One of the interesting things, so I've studied essential oils a little bit as well, probably not as much as you have, but there is sesquiterpenes. Have you heard of this term in the aromatherapy
Yes.
world?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a similar kind of thing, but I think it's a branch of the terpenes and how they respond within the brain. So some terpenes can penetrate through the blood-brain barrier, and things like caryophyllene, which can be found in oh, what's the name of that oil? It starts with a C, and it's really anti-inflammatory. It's also a magnifier. It starts with a C. It'll come to me. I can't quite remember right now.
Is it
Uh,
chamomile?
no, no, it's woodier, thicker. And I always get the pronunciation wrong. Um,
Camphor?
no, no,
I'm going to be thinking about it
I
this
know.
entire.
Oh, I'll keep talking, and maybe it'll.
Yes, it'll pop out at a random time. Okay.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the terpenes or the essential oils that can penetrate the blood-brain barrier, we have one of the terpenes in cannabis called beta-caryophyllene. It acts like a cannabinoid within the body, so it's really unique in that way. And then some people have found that this one particular oil, they can add it into the regime and have an amplified cannabis experience, not high, but just amplifying the benefits of the cannabis as well.
Synergistically working with other things,
Yes. Yeah.
like the way that black pepper works with turmeric.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Got
And
you. Okay. All right.
yeah, and
That
beta
makes sense.
caryophyllene is the peppery terpene. We consider that to be the peppery terpene. So yeah, it's on the same bend here. So the black pepper,
Okay.
beta
All
caryophyllene.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Look, this is fascinating to me. I could talk about this all day. I know that I know that it was such a lifesaver for me when I was nauseous all the time and couldn't eat because I was nauseous all the time, and definitely helped with some of the pain. So this is such an important tool that you can add to your toolbox. So yes, absolutely. Let's keep talking about the beauty of it.
Mhm. Mhm. I'm curious what method you used. Like, how did you consume it?
Inhalation.
Inhalation. Okay. Okay.
Everybody else inhaled. I just sat in the room and couldn't see people. It was that foggy. Do you know what I mean?
Just breathe it in. Just breathe it in.
Yes, I just sat in the environment and contact high, as it were. Yeah, my roommates were pretty cool. They were
Good.
pretty. My housemates were really very helpful in that regard.
Mhm.
I've no idea. Like I couldn't tell you what strain or I couldn't tell you. It didn't matter.
No, no, and we can get caught up in that, and it really doesn't matter. It's more important to look at the method of intake, the terpene profile, and how it responds in your body, because you can have a strain of cannabis grown, as you said, in different areas, and it's going to express itself in a different way. And so things like one of the like Blue Dream is a really popular cultivar, and so you can get Blue Dream in your state, and then I can go to the next state and buy a Blue Dream, and it's completely different.
Right.
So so I try not to get too hung up on that, on what the strain name is, because it's not, yeah, not super indicative of what the experience you're going to get.
So it's more important to know the chemical makeup of it and where it was grown and what and that can be a little challenging as somebody that's brand new to cannabis in general.
Mm.
And trying to work through that. Do you have any tips on how to start
Mhm.
the process of research and deciding what works for your personal self and what does not?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'll go through just some basic starting, but I also have a free gift that we're going to talk about later that's all about that. It's all about choosing the right cannabis for you.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So first off, it's really about setting your intention. So why are you reaching for cannabis? What are you hoping it will do for you? Because until we get that clarity, we can be all over the place. So really finding, do you want pain relief? Do you want to sleep? Do you have nausea you're dealing with? Is it a mood? Are you struggling with anxiety or depression? So what specifically are you dealing with? So let's talk about nausea. Does that sound like a good place to start?
Absolutely. It certainly is something that survivors have to deal with on a daily basis is nausea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's a few different ways of going about it. And usually when I'm working with women, I ask them what their preference is. So some people are totally okay with the inhalation, and some people are just not, and they don't want to go down that route. And that's totally fine. Inhalation is connected with so many things, so many stigma things. Maybe you smoked in the past and you don't want to do that kind of action. Maybe you don't really understand it, and it just is a bit intimidating. And so that's totally okay. Inhalation is, we look to inhalation if you need some relief instantaneously, because inhalation kicks in the fastest. So if you're like for me, I have dealt with nausea myself, not due to cancer, but due to other illnesses. And in order to eat dinner, I needed to consume some cannabis. So I would take a couple of puffs of my dry herb vaporizer and then go and have dinner, and I could actually eat. It would bring my appetite back, calm my nausea, and be able to enjoy the meal, as opposed to looking at it and going, ugh, that's disgusting. I don't want to eat that. So it helps with the brain. So it helps with my vision of looking at the food and saying, this is good and nutritious for me, helps with my stomach to calm things down, and helps improve my appetite. So these are all really important things to keep ourselves nourished. But if you're like, nope, I don't want to do the inhalation, then you can certainly go towards an oil, something where you can consume it a little bit before you need to eat. So this would need to be consumed probably about a half an hour to an hour before. Yeah, to give it time because it's got to get into your system. And then I would hold it underneath the tongue for a couple of minutes sublingually so that it activates it more quickly. And
Yes,
then, yeah,
and with the oil, the tincture, um, I remember that you said that they also do coconut oil. So if you have a problem with alcohol, or you don't want to take alcohol, or you're administering this to somebody under the age and you don't want them to have the alcohol, you could use the coconut oil. I know in a lot of tinctures they can do glycerites
yep.
and put it in glycerin. So
Mhm.
um, coconut oil is just the same thing as far as I'm concerned in regards to that.
Yeah. 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 So that's a really viable option to be able to use it in that way. And then I have a third option, which is relatively new in the world of cannabis and medical cannabis. And this has kind of come about by a number of educators like myself and cannabis doctors who have been working with cannabis in a really just in many different ways. And so this method involves utilizing the raw cannabis flower. So just raw, you just get raw bud and taking off a piece, a tiny little pea-sized amount. I don't want to break it here because it'll crumble on my lap. But just a pea-sized amount and making it into tea. So this is really good, like before bed or making it up in the morning or in the middle of the day, and you're just feeling nauseous, but maybe you don't need to eat, so you don't need that piece. You just want the nausea to go away. And so you would just take a little pea-sized amount, put it in a little bit of boiling water for 10 minutes. You can add some peppermint or chamomile or other herbs if you wish, but don't add any cream or sugar or honey or anything else to it. So the raw cannabis like this is not psychoactive. And so if it's not overheated, so by just heating it with some boiling water for 5 to 10 minutes is totally fine. But sometimes if you add fats or sugars into it, it will activate it, and then you'll have a tea that could potentially make you high.
Okay, all right, that's beautiful to know. So if that's your intention, then add your cream and sugar.
Yeah.
Um, but
Mhm.
if you're okay, that's fantastic. I did not know that either. I love these chats. Helping other people learn stuff as I learn stuff too. It's amazing.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So those are kind of the three ways that I would utilize cannabis for nausea and just really but setting your intention first. So before you go to consume your cannabis, you like, I'm dealing with just really, really awful nausea and I want to feel more calm in my belly. And so saying that intention to yourself first of I feel calm and relaxed in my belly. I am looking forward to nurturing myself with good food. My belly is calm and relaxed, or whatever it is that's going to bring you back to that state of peacefulness within yourself. And that's so key because cannabis will do whatever we want it to. And if we wanted to go to use it for being high and having and partying, it'll do that. But if that's not what we want, then we need to tell it, this is what I want you to do.
So if we were looking to treat a different thing, how do you feel about salves? So if inflammation or something like that, is that do you think that cannabis is an appropriate thing for inflammation, or do you think that there are other herbs that might be better for that?
In a topical way,
Yes, in a topical way.
yeah, it can be really beneficial for any pain or joints or anything that's closer to the top of the surface of the skin. So you need to be not much like less than an inch below in the skin. So anywhere deeper in the hip or the knee joint, it's not going to penetrate that deep, but it will penetrate just the top layers of the skin, muscles, aches and pains. Really, really helpful for reducing pain and inflammation, although it's not as long lived. So as I was when I was talking about the inhalation, when you inhale, responds to the body right away, but it doesn't last that long. It could be an hour to 2 hours. When we're using our oils, or oils can take about 20 minutes to activate and can last up to 4 hours. Our cells just take a few minutes to activate and can last for about 2 to 3 hours. So sometimes what people will do is take their salve in the morning and they feel great. And then by lunchtime, they feel awful again. And they're like, it didn't work. Well, actually, it did work, but you need to reapply it. That's the trick about it.
And in the salves, do you think the THC is the thing, or do you think the CBD is the thing that
Yeah, both.
both? So it
Mhm.
would depend on the kind of inflammation that you have, or it doesn't matter.
I really like to have, so some people find that CBD alone is helpful, but not a large percentage. I'm really hearing people who have a salve that's just CBD, it's kind of is okay, but when you combine it with THC, it's this synergistic effect of having
Okay.
them both together.
But
Better.
the whole plant, holistic, like yeah, I get it. I was just asking questions because I like to make salves. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and combine other herbs with it. So I love to put essential oils in the salves. I often put peppermint and rosemary and cypress. Super helpful for inflammation. Or I'll make I have a cooling salve I like to make and a warming salve. So your warming has
Diane,
cinnamon and your cayenne. Yes, yes, and all those things. So depending on what what the strain
what you're
is.
looking, yeah. Okay, no, that absolutely makes sense.
Mhm,
All
mhm.
right,
But
so
apply often. The other thing as well about CBD and THC. So um, THC, when you apply it on the top of the surface of the skin, it's kind of adverse to absorbing into the skin. But CBD isn't. So when you combine them, CBD helps to draw the THC into the skin as well. So that's why I like to keep them together.
and obviously the carrier oil that you're putting it into makes a difference on
Yes,
how far it'll.
yeah, I usually infuse it into coconut oil.
I I like coconut oil to a point, but it's not awesome. It clogs your pores. Like avocado oil is better, and it's not as greasy as olive oil, you know. So you can play around with it.
Oh yeah.
You can figure out what you want, and maybe even castor oil, depending on how deep you want the medicine to go. So
I
yeah,
haven't tried infusing into castor oil, but certainly avocado or grapeseed or olive or any of, yeah. The reason that I use coconut oil is because it solidifies. And so you would just need to replace that ingredient with something else in order to have your salve be solid.
little beeswax,
Yep.
mango butter,
Yes. Yep.
butter.
Yep. Oh
There's
yeah.
you know,
The
and the
option.
butters add their beauty to the salve.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Even shea butter. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very soft butter, but it's still a butter.
Yeah. 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 That's what I put in. I put in my salves. I have coconut oil, shea butter, cacao butter, and beeswax.
Sounds amazing. All right, so I know that you have other stuff to teach that I haven't asked questions about. So what have I not asked that you want to talk about?
Keeping track is really, really key.
Hmm.
So I know that you've got this amazing binder, and so that people can keep track of their cannabis journey, or sorry, not cannabis journey, cancer journey. And the same thing is important for cannabis. So maybe you even have a sheet in your binder that records your cannabis consumption.
Mm, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right,
So
I'll have to collaborate with you to make that up because that's fantastic. That can go into the alternate wellness modality section.
yes. And the reason that we want to keep track is for one to know if it's working. So we're really good about forgetting things and or even just going, I know I had pain yesterday, but I don't today, and so everything's fine. And just really being able to see and go back and see what's working, what's not working. And so I keep track of the time that I took a dose, how much I took, what I took, and then checking back an hour later to see how did my body respond? Was it the right dose? Was it too much? Was it not enough? And what level of symptoms did that change? So that's the other thing is checking in before you start dosing. What is your level of symptoms from 1 to 10? And then
Awesome.
checking back in an hour later, what is your level of symptoms now?
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, we need that feedback because I often will hear that. Clients will come and say, "Oh, it's not working." And I'm going back through my notes. I'm like, "Well, how are you sleeping?" "Oh, great." I'm like, "Okay, because when you first came to me, you weren't sleeping. You were sleeping like 4 hours a night, and now you're sleeping 6 hours a night. Okay, so we've made some improvement, and we need to recognize that and where we can continue to make improvements."
Yes. And writing the data down is the only way that you're going to get those answers, because I promise you, you will forget.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the middle of a cancer journey. Hey, I joke around, but it's not really a joke. Like, I ate the same thing for breakfast every day and I couldn't remember what I had. So like, it just it's funny now. It wasn't funny 16 years ago when I couldn't remember if I had even eaten the breakfast. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
writing it down is absolutely critical. Writing all of the things down is the only way that you can see what's going on and how you need to tweak it until you can find the optimal of whatever it is you're using for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. There's two different methods as well of consuming cannabis in a cancer journey. So I just want to touch on both of them so that your people know you have a choice here. So we've been talking about utilizing cannabis for symptoms. So due to your cancer journey, there are some symptoms happening within the body that cannabis can be supportive of. Some people also choose cannabis as a way of treating their cancer, which is a whole nother ball of wax, and utilizing a system that was developed by Rick Simpson. So he makes an oil called RSO, Rick Simpson oil.
Well,
Yeah. So these are two definitely different paths that people can choose to go on. And you can choose one or the other, or you can flop back and forth to the two. It's your journey and you can choose. The RSO method requires some dedication because you need to up level your amounts of cannabis over a period of time so that you're consuming upwards of a gram a day. Now there's some debate as to whether it's a gram or 3 grams or less than that. It can be a range, and people will definitely find what works for them. But generally, the goal is to work towards a gram a day, which is a lot of cannabis. And it takes time to build up to that. And so some people really are like, yep, that's what I want to do. And some people are like, nope, I'm just want to use cannabis for symptom relief. And by either are both viable options.
and I had recently learned about that, the the RSO. Like 2 weeks ago. I had never heard of it before. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Which is another reason why I do this, because if I've never heard of it, other people also haven't heard of it. And I think it's super important to provide as much education as possible, so that when you are selecting what you want to do and which modalities that you want to incorporate, like, I advocate that you should do mind body spirit and that you should listen to what your oncologist is telling you. But I'm also not a medical doctor and I'm not making any medical claims. I just have had my own personal experience, and I'm not saying it was easy, because it absolutely was not. It was really rough, but I had a very aggressive cancer, and you know, it's the formula that worked for me.
absolutely. And that's where everybody needs to follow that inner guidance and
Yes,
tune into your
exactly.
intuition. There's so many tools, and there's so many tools that you're presenting, Tanya too. And so it's important to be able to allow people to, these are the choices, and you choose what's going to work for you.
Well, that's why I call it your holistic blueprint. Like, you choose exactly what you want in your blueprint. When we talk when I talk with my clients, like, these are some of the more common alternative wellness modalities. How do you feel about essential oils? How do you feel about flower essences? How do you feel about cannabis? How do you feel about crystal singing bowls? And your body knows what you need and it will tell you. You just have to put your listening ears on.
Right, that's right. And be brave and sometimes make decisions that you never thought you would ever have to make before. Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions that I haven't asked that need to be asked? Because I don't know enough about cannabis that I don't know what to ask you. So I want to make sure that we're hitting all the things that you think are important for my audience.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people have concerns around getting high. So let's just talk about that for a little bit.
Sure.
Um, you don't have to get high. Um, in the route of going with symptom management, that's yeah, you don't have to. In the route of using high doses of RSO, there's going to be some experiences of feeling high. So forewarned.
Part of the education, right? Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, I can understand that because of some of us that are a little older and we're used to how the laws used to be and the stigma and the rhetoric that we were told about this beautiful plant, because it does so much. So sometimes that can be a little hard to overcome. So that's a great point that you made there,
Mhm,
Teresa. I
mhm.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. So in the case of symptom relief, if we're like, no, I don't want to experience that, I just want to feel better in my body, what do I do? So as I was saying before, THC and CBD work really, really well together. And the way that they work within our bodies is a system called the endocannabinoid system. So we have a system within our bodies where we create our own cannabinoids.
Okay.
And the two main cannabinoids that we are being researched and that we know about are 2-AG and anandamide. Now, anandamide is a Sanskrit word for bliss. So our body naturally creates a cannabinoid that's meant to bring us bliss. It's fascinating. It's like we're supposed to be blissful.
Imagine that.
But we are noticing, of course, in our environment, in our world, our bodies are deficient in different areas. And this is one of them that we're noticing is that we may have deficiencies within our endocannabinoid system, and we're not creating enough cannabinoids to supplement that system. The whole purpose of the endocannabinoid system, or the ECS, is to bring balance and homeostasis to all the other systems within the body. So whether you have cancer or whether you have Lyme disease or whether you have arthritis, there's an imbalance going on within your body. And the ECS wants to bring balance back into the body. So if you don't have enough cannabinoids, endocannabinoids roaming around in your body that are binding into the receptors within the body, your body might the other systems in your body might have trouble with being balanced and bringing homeostasis.
Oh,
The endocannabinoid system helps us to regulate our sleep, our mood, our appetite, our pain, our stress. All of the things are managed by this system. And we've not even paid any attention to it. It was only discovered in the early 90s, and our medical system still isn't even really talking about it. If you ask your doctor about the ECS, he'll be like, well, you're what? They probably think you're talking about the endocrine system or something like that.
right. I was just gonna say this is not something they taught me in school. I mean,
No,
that was a while ago, but I don't think they taught my children that in school either.
no.
This is a brand new thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And so we want to build up this system within our body so that we can have better healing capabilities. Because this is the master regulator. If we don't address the master regulator, we're going to have more troubles bringing healing into the body. So if we don't have enough cannabinoids and we need to supplement, that's when we can look to cannabis, because the cannabinoids, called phytocannabinoids because they're from a plant. So the phytocannabinoids of THC and CBD act similarly to the endocannabinoids within our body. So they can help bring bliss into our bodies. They can help to balance and reduce pain and help us sleep and manage mood and stress and all the things.
Fantastic. And that would be found in any of the method of putting it into your body.
Correct.
So I have a question for you that has to do with drug testing. Like if you have a job that has mandatory drug testing, um, how, do you have advice? Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a few different ways to look at it. And one is if you are consuming cannabis in a medical way and you have a medical prescription, legally, I'm from Canada, so this may be different in the US, but legally, as a medical patient, you have the right to your medicine. And I know we're still, because it's not federally legal in the US yet, we're still going to have these businesses that are like, yeah, whatever. I don't care about your medical prescription. You tested positive on this test, and there's repercussions of that.
Yeah.
So we don't want to go down that route, but you can first talk to your organization and just say, I have a medical, my doctor has prescribed me medical cannabis, and this is what the reason is for, and this is how I'm utilizing it. Actually, you don't have to see the reason for, because that's way too much personal information.
Mm.
But you can share that you have a medical cannabis prescription. And if they're still like no go, then you want to stick to CBD derived from hemp, not from cannabis, because it doesn't have, and which is federally legal throughout the US anyway. CBD that is derived from hemp, not from cannabis, has less than 0.3% THC. And that's what's federally legal.
Okay.
Yeah, so there isn't THC in that product. You won't test positive for THC on that drug test, and CBD isn't, uh, it's benign as far as drug testing goes.
Fantastic. I, I'm sure some people have that thought.
Yeah, it's an important one. Yeah, yeah, just to really be mindful of how you're consuming. Yeah, but ideally, we have our business owners going, yeah, that I can't touch that. That's their right. That's your medical right to consume cannabis.
Well, we haven't been known for observing what bodily autonomy over here in the States. Recently, we've been a little bit ass backwards on that.
Yeah.
So, like what we should have and what we do have are two different things, Terese.
Yes.
Right. So I would love to talk about that gift you were mentioning earlier.
Yes, totally. So I have a valuable guide called The 4 Tips to Finding the Right Cannabis for You. And it goes through the 4 main areas of cannabis and what we need to look at when you're going to the cannabis store. So you want to print it off and take it with you to when you go to the cannabis store so that you get a better overview of what it is that you are looking at. And
Yeah.
the bud tenders, so the people that behind the counter at retail at cannabis stores are called bud tenders, and they will love you for all the extra information that you're bringing in, and for the insight and for your intentions. So you've already set your intention, you know why you want to reach for cannabis, and then you've got these 4 tips to help guide you to
It
purchasing.
sounds like it will definitely help you make better decisions, but also ask better questions. And the
Yes,
quality of your question determines the quality of your answer.
that's
So
right.
if you go in with more upfront knowledge, it'll make it easier for you. And that sounds like a tremendous gift.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Um, I'll make sure that that will be in the notes of the show so that everybody has access to that. I really appreciate you being with us today, Terese.
Awesome. Well, I hope that just this little bit of cannabis knowledge just piques interest, and just like, maybe it would work for me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you. Have a
Yeah.
good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.